Envy and Gratitude, Melanie Klein, audiobook, Part 5. In these ways, envy and the defenses against it play an important part in the negative therapeutic reaction, in addition to the factors discovered by Freud and further developed by Joan Riviere. For envy and the attitudes it gives rise to interfere with the gradual building up of a good object in the transference situation. If at the earliest stage the good food and the primal good object could not be accepted and assimilated, this is repeated in the transference, and the course of the analysis is impaired. In the context of the analytic material, it is possible, by working through former situations, to reconstruct the patient's feelings as a baby towards the mother's breast. For instance, the infant may have a grievance that the milk comes too quickly or too slowly, and that he was not given the breast when he most craved for it, and therefore, when it is offered, he does not want it anymore. He turns away from it and sucks his fingers instead. When he accepts the breast, he may not drink enough, or the feed is disturbed. Some infants obviously have great difficulty in overcoming such grievances. With others, these feelings, even though based on actual frustrations, are soon overcome. The breast is taken and the feed is fully enjoyed. We find in analysis that patients who, according to what they have been told, took their food satisfactorily and showed no obvious signs of the attitudes I have just described, had split off their grievance, envy, and hate, which nevertheless form part of their character development. These processes become quite clear in the transference situation. The original wish to please the mother, the longing to be loved, as well as the urgent need to be protected from the consequences of their own destructive impulses, can be found in the analysis to underlie the cooperation of those patients whose envy and hate are split off, but form part of the negative therapeutic reaction. I have often referred to the infant's desire for the inexhaustible, ever-present breast. But as has been suggested in the previous section, it is not only food he desires. He also wants to be freed from destructive impulses and persecutory anxiety. This feeling that the mother is omnipotent and that it is up to her to prevent all pain and evils from internal and external sources is also found in the analysis of adults. In passing, I would say that the very favorable changes in feeding children, which have come about in recent years, in contrast to the rather rigid way of feeding according to timetable, cannot altogether prevent the infant's difficulties, because the mother cannot eliminate his destructive impulses and persecutory anxiety. There is another point to be considered. A too anxious attitude on the part of the mother, who whenever the infant cries, at once presents him with food, is unhelpful to the infant. He feels the mother's anxiety, and this increases his own. I have also met in adults the grievance that they had not been allowed to cry enough, and thereby missed the possibility of expressing anxiety and grief, and thus getting relief. So that neither aggressive impulses nor depressive anxiety could sufficiently find an outlet. It is of interest that Abraham mentions among the factors which underlie manic depressive illness both excessive frustration and too great indulgence. For frustration, if not excessive, is also a stimulus for adaptation to the external world and for the development of the sense of reality. In fact, a certain amount of frustration followed by gratification might give the infant the feeling that he has been able to cope with his anxiety. I have also found that the infant's unfulfilled desires, which are to some extent incapable of fulfillment, are an important contributory factor in his sublimations and creative activities. The absence of conflict in the infant, if such a hypothetical state could be imagined, would deprive him of enrichment of his personality and of an important factor in the strengthening of his ego. For conflict and the need to overcome it is a fundamental element in creativeness.